sales session. And that is true today because I have a client upcoming, so I can't be out here chattering. Today I'm going to share with you my strategy for managing when I think I fucked up and or when there are things coming my way that, or you have your moment. Here you are, do your moment, make your moment. You have your moment, and in your moment sometimes you think or see things in the distance and they're not here. You're here in your moment, but you bring those possible scenarios into your moment. You can have all types of experiences about something that's not even here. It's not in your moment. Your moment's just here. And it's great to have access to information outside of your moment, or what you perceive to be access to information. And it's really like, how are you working with it? Is it snow globing your moment, or is it supporting you and clarifying how you're focusing? Jeremiah, is that you? Man, I was going to call you yesterday. Okay, so what I'm talking about today is my strategy for dealing with, again, like when I think I fucked up and I'm afraid about the consequences, or I have a mess to clean up, or at least I think that I do, or when there's a lot of stuff that's happening outside of me. So our first inclination, at least mine and people I work with, because I've been doing mind stuff with people for a long time, and so I've seen in a bunch of heads, and I'll tell you, in the ways you think you're crazy, you're not. And you can also tell that by, and I say this a lot, if you check some of the things that are popular as far as memes, or the ways that, or what people pay attention to at a content level, you could see like, hey, you're not the only one out there. So let's just take a second, give everybody a round of applause for just holding on to their hats. And it's not to say that there isn't a time when you don't need to hold on to your hat, or when that becomes so natural. But if you feel kind of like, rocky on the inside, you're not alone. You're not alone. So I'll talk generally as if I'm speaking to the population, and know that I really can't know what everybody's thinking or feeling, and so please excuse the generalization. But let's say that, your stuff is going on outside of you. You think that you made a wrong decision. You think that you betrayed yourself. You think that somebody's going to get you. You think something's going to happen. Your first inclination may be to chase the little chickens in your head. The chickens in your head. I have Bugs Bunny at the bottom, a rough one from the cartoons, when he's like, which way did he go? Which way did he go? I can't remember if he says it or Elmer Fudd says it, but your brain is like, okay, great. We'll figure this out. And it will run after chickens in your head. Chickens of thought, chickens of cause, chickens of how we'll explain, how we'll get around. This does nothing except kick up dust. This does nothing, and the practice then is to recognize when your chickens are running loose, and instead come to the still place inside of you. So you might imagine that somewhere, actually inside of you. I can put it in my belly, or I can put it a little bit lower than that, and I will notice when I'm scrambling and say hey, okay, oh, look, hey, you're so fast. Look how fast you are. Now let's come back here and sit down. And so I try to find this light here is that thread of awareness that you're okay, that everything is okay. And you might say well, obviously it isn't, or I wouldn't feel this way, or, it might not be. But there is this beautiful little story arc that humans live through, but they forget that they live through. And way back in 2017, I did a presentation about this, and I called it the Happy Gappy. And it's basically, we forget this little cycle where there's conflict, some kind of issue, questions, will the issue be resolved, fear, pain, turmoil, some period of resolution, okay again, a baseline, a new baseline. So you're ultimately going to get to this place where, if you choose to, you can always opt out of acceptance. You can always choose to make yourself as miserable as you like. But you'll have the opportunity, after the wave of change, to arrive again at a period of okayness. It might be different than what you experience now, but you'll likely have, if you choose to, a deeper level of compassion or perspective, or there's something beautiful about this journey if you let it be. And since you already know you're going to be at the same place that you're starting, or you thought that you were starting, because you also forget that this happened before you got to where you are. Cute little bright brain, isn't it? You can say, okay, like, I'm okay. And all you're doing really there is like closing the time between those 2 points, because the destination is inevitable. Again, if you allow it, you have the choice as to what you make of what happens to you. The way that I kind of do that, and another way to raise above the chickens, is if you've ever been to New Orleans, Louis Armstrong Park on, I forget which street, or Orleans, one of the streets that come out of the quarter towards the park, there's this big like white silver arc, and it says, I think, Louis Armstrong Park over it. And that's this like arc of faith, where if you keep walking towards this, through that, to enter the park where everything's okay, then it helps you keep your mind out of the holes that you don't want to go into. I can't really verify with science whether that is, I can't really say with science, if focusing at that level actually creates it. They say like, oh, you focus through your thoughts. I'll say though, from what I've found at a tangible level, when you're thinking the alternative, the sky is falling, you aren't doing anything except putting stress on your body, on your mind, on your relationships, on your stuff. And so when you walk around singing and yelling that, it likely will, because that's the way that you're behaving. And so if you can find that centra of calm within yourself, and know that yes, there are going to be chickens that run around, yes, there might be a period of change, but you have faith in your ultimate destination. That confidence, that direction of your faith does seem to help you get there faster. One of the comments is, but I say I'm okay, then boom, everything blows over. And that's been my experience as well. It's some level of acceptance, some level when I stop resisting or pushing against the thing that I'm afraid of happening, it usually transforms. And again, like, we could look at that at a energetic level, and that you would be keeping it active through emotion. What you don't want, you're giving everything. Like, I think of it like this. I seem to attract a type of client or audience member who's really like, used to doing it themselves, pretty much a force, has been through some shit. And I'll like remind them, like, would you want to fight you? Like, would you? And so that's really what's happening on the inside when you are resisting what is. You're like fighting you. And like, I might look like kind of soft and cuddly, and I probably am, but I'm also like a motherfucking force. And so would I want me pointed against me? Fuck no. And so when you allow, like, when you're pushing against life, what you're pushing against are really your ideas. Your ideas are on your inside, so you're pushing against yourself. So on this one, I have a guy standing at the top. I don't know if you can see the yellow. He has a light source, and there's somebody on the ground who's crawling around looking for something. When you allow yourself to put down the chicken chasing, when you stop trying to solve your discomfort through the information that you have, you can climb a little higher and shed light onto the ground and find new pathways, new decisions, new etc. So this model of allowing kind of like your inner calmness and the concept of faith to lead you doesn't mean that you don't do shit. This isn't like, okay, great, like, where's my tea? I'll sit over here, call me when it's done. No. Like, you are still active in the play. You're still active in the action, but your relationship to those things isn't one with as much fear. And again, why does that matter? Well, it matters because your quality of thought decreases substantially when you're crawling around on the ground in your little survival brain. What you can think of, how you can communicate, what you relate gets a lot smaller, tighter, and darker if you're in a state of fear. Whereas if you allow for this opening, that again is inevitable because this is our little human cycle we forget about, then you can get a little higher and navigate it with less wear and tear. As you've seen, or possibly may have seen in my work, I think I'm not going to call myself a metaphysician anymore. That word was given to me a long time ago, and I think it's going to change. But when I use it, what I mean is, so here's Princess and the Pea. That's a fairy tale if you haven't heard it, and it's a little more complex than this, the fairy tale. But, I have this little doll sitting on top of this stack of mattresses, and there's a little pea underneath. And in the story, it's kind of skewed because the prince, the queen, and I might jack this up, the queen didn't want the prince to be with this potential princess. And she wanted to prove that she wasn't sensitive enough. And so she said, we'll tell if she's good enough, we'll put a pea under all her mattresses at night. And if she feels it, we'll know. And the prince was like, screw you. And he put a bowling ball under there. And so the next morning, the princess was like, oh, I slept terrible. It was like there was this, huge thing underneath me. And the queen's like, oh my God, But the idea is that there are these layers of experience under with which we have this one that we can see. And usually it's the disturbance at the lower levels that causes the things that we can see. For example, if you had some, issues at home around being able to stand in your own emotions and express yourself, you might have problems right now with your boss. But that's not the problem. The problem is a long time ago. The problem is how you learned to respond to what is. If you didn't have this, you would react differently to this and thereby generate a new result. And so often, when we are facing something in front of us, it's an opportunity to take some of the shit out of the mattresses beneath us. And the way that you do that is you have an open mind and you ask what's here for me? And you don't hold so tightly to the problem as you think it is, because it's likely underneath. You see this, with money. You see this with expression. It's very rarely what you can see. It's usually much deeper. And the root one, as far as I can tell, and I was on Dr. Dwayne Hartman's podcast again last week. I don't know when they're coming out, but we talked about this God consciousness, this remembering of who you are. This idea that you are infinite, and that underlying discomfort, the denial of that, is what makes all of these so much worse. You take them a lot more seriously, and it's not that life isn't serious, it's just that it's not quite what you think it is, So that's to say that when you are kind of in the throes of some stuff, remember that the thing that you're looking at, the problem that you think it is usually an expression of something much deeper. And to interact with the upheaval in joy, because great, now that's going to be out of your way again if you're open to it. Otherwise you'll be on the same track, which is fine, because eventually you'll get tired enough to get off it. So today what I talked about was how I interact with life and myself when I notice that I'm uncomfortable because I think I did something wrong, or something wrong is going to happen, or whatever. And for me, one of my layers that I didn't see, and I think I'll do one on, it's shadow work, but it's really just wholeness work. One of my layers is this idea that, life wants to get me. I learned that kind of at an early stage, it's not safe out there, life's not going to take care of you. And so I took that and projected it onto different patterns of living and experience. But it wasn't that, it was this. So that's to say that when I experience things, I'm still aware of a tendency or a template to interpret them as if what did I do wrong, and that again is sort of a fractal expression of the idea that I could have been responsible for, the adults around me or the life around me as a child. God bless everybody doing their best, So, when I notice that there are a lot of chickens running because I'm afraid or I feel some type of way, and the chickens are thoughts or ideas in your head, they're things you're chasing. You think like, oh, if I catch this, if I understand that, if I analyze that, if I solve this, then I'll feel better. You know, and then the little rabbit down there, like, which way did he go? Which way did he go? This will keep you busy, but this won't make you feel better. And this also takes away your power to respond to what is in a thoughtful way. When you relax a little bit more and you recognize and connect with the light within, that calm center within. I need some of these drawings for my refrigerator. I'm gonna do a book of them. Oh, I could do a book with like tear outs that people could use. What I do is connect with that awareness inside, which, you know, at a logical level, you can say that when there's usually an issue in your life, there's a period of, oh, fuck, will I make it? Will I make it? Will I make it? And then you make it. And sure, sometimes things are different, but if you allow this point to be your new point and this to be okay, then it is. And so really that journey of like, you can kind of like just know that you're ultimately going to arrive at a place of okayness and save yourself that emotional wear and tear. And that really is just walking through this arc or arch of faith. And as you do that, you can take a higher perspective on what's happening on the ground and allow yourself to interact with it with a little bit more foresight. When you're on the ground, the choices that you make are really survivalistically, and they usually increase your problem. Whereas if you can separate yourself a little bit and look at it as if it was a friend, you could say like, oh, silly bear, you just need to make this phone call. But for one reason or another, you can't see that on the ground, and that's okay. And then I talked about how, you know, ultimately what your experience is likely some expression of something that, you know, a question that your consciousness is answering about life through your experience. And so you see these things, but they're usually because there's some disturbance underneath. And so in the process as well, you can invite that to come to your awareness and to welcome it, integrate it, and forgive it, and transcend the pattern. And it seems like intention and allowing and a willingness to change is enough there. Shit's real crazy, but it seems like, you know, we get real comfortable in our discomfort. And when you remove one of those root patterns, a lot of things change. When you change on the inside, how you relate to people changes. So your relationships change, where you find attractive to go. I sometimes teach it like, if you used to be a partier and you stop partying, like, it's not just that thing, you stop partying, it's all the things that go around it, your whole lifestyle, your network, everything, it changes. And so sometimes we're really afraid to get rid of those things underneath because we don't know what's next, or if we'll like it, or if we'll be good at it, or if we'll be alone. In which case, like, just be gentle with yourself and recognize that you don't have to do it right now, and when you want to do it, you can. And that gentleness will allow you to kind of like ease into that new place and see if it's correct for you. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. Like I said, this had to be a real quick one. I must go. But I appreciate everybody coming here. Good morning. And if you have any topics that you're interested in, or if there is a topic, like when I present and it's something that resonates with you, it's really helpful for me to hear, just so that I know, like, I'm using this time in a way that's meaningful for you and for me. And it's just helpful. So thank you. When I get those messages, I really like it. All right, see you guys.